So I wanted to expand on my video that I made yesterday about Stephen A. Smith. There was another clip I seen to show how tribalistic and race-obsessed Stephen A. Smith is, but I didn't put it in the video, so I wanted to actually show it and expand upon this whole thing with him. But before I do that, listen to what Shannon Sharpe has to say about a different problem that can affect the black community.
Shannon, a lot of drama going on, but is that out of bounds from Antonio?
Absolutely, it's out of bounds. And what we have here, Skip, and I can speak to this. Sometimes in our community, the black community, if we call out someone from our community for doing wrong, that person does not want to be held accountable for the wrong that he's doing. It's easier to point to the person that's calling you he or she out as an Uncle Tom. So by me calling you out for not showing up to practice, me calling you out for not being professional, you label me an Uncle Tom.
Yep.
That's lazy. Where is the accountability on your part for not holding up your end of the obligation?
So you heard what he had to say. That was very profound of him. He's saying that when you call out someone for being an Uncle Tom because they pointed out some bad behavior on your part, that's lazy on you. What Shannon fails to realize is that not every black man in sports broadcasting may think the same way as you. There's one of them that probably wouldn't agree with you there. He's talking about Stephen A. Smith, of course. But before I do get to that, I do actually want to say that it's weird. By this logic, what happens when a white man calls out a black man for his perceived transgressions? Would it then be lazy to accuse that white guy of racism? Pretty important question, don't you think? I find it funny that blacks can understand this concept when it's in their own community. When they call out someone in their community for doing wrong, and they're like, oh, you're an Uncle Tom, you're just being, the white man's bitch, basically. And they're like, no, you're calling me out for calling you out. You know you did something wrong. What about what you did wrong? So why isn't it the same when something like that goes down between a black and a white? Why then is it always assumed and presumed that it's racist? That's just some food for thought. Something to think about. Cause to me, it's exactly the same thing. It's lazy when you jump to racism between every situation that goes wrong between a white and a black person. If the black person was harmed in any way by the white person, it's always racism first. Hate crime first. Now, as you'll see in the Stephen A. Smith clip, Stephen doesn't really think the same way as Shannon does. He's not playing the same game as Shannon. He's playing the black and white game.
So on that level, I'm going to put Antonio Brown on the same level as Big Ben in terms of, okay, let's hear what you got to say and go from there. Here's where I jump off the shit with Antonio Brown and all of them. How could you do this to Mike Tomlin? How could you do this to him?
What do what?
When you, and let me say that, I'm going to say it plain right here on Get Up For You, Greeny.
He's going to be all up in you, Greeny, and he's going to be relentless. He's putting it right out there for you. But before he gets to his main point, seriously, Antonio Brown, how could you do that to another brother? That's what he's about to say.
When you are a black athlete and you know that you have a coach of African-American descent, the kind of things that we talk about away from y'all and others is the plight, the challenge of finding somebody to be in that position. And when you get in that position, even though you go all out, there's an extra incentive to really go out there and give it your all. Well, in the case of Mike Tomlin, how much incentive do you need? The man hasn't had a losing record in 12 years. He's a Super Bowl champion, been to 2 Super Bowl appearances. To allow the level of dysfunction to reek through this franchise the way a lot of these guys did, from Le'Veon Bell to the offensive linemen calling them out and acting the way that they were acting, to Antonio Brown and the mood swings, et cetera, et cetera. How is it that you don't see the kind of negative effect this would have on Mike Tomlin? That's my problem with the Steelers more so than anything else.
Right, so it's not about winning and losing to Stephen A. Smith. It's about black and white. It's about how could you do that to Mike Tomlin? And I know Mike Tomlin has got to be thinking, oh, goddamn, I got stabbed in the back by one of my own. Really? Is that what this is about? This is your main goal here in sports? Stephen A. Smith mentioned when we're not around y'all white people, we're going to talk about how hard it is to be around y'all white people. So that is Stephen A. Smith's biggest problem with Antonio Brown. Not that Antonio Brown doesn't want to win and only cares about himself. You know, like Shannon said, calling him out for something he's doing that's wrong behavior, and him trying to sidestep that and be like, oh, why are you calling me out? We're supposed to be brothers. The most important thing to Stephen A. Smith is that, being brothers, and having, you know, I guess, a common enemy, Whitey. Alright guys, have a good night.